TCG is in danger. We need a ban list badly. It should be no surprise that a majority of the player base is not loving the current TCG format. And although it is weird because we had one not too long ago.
So it's the Saturday of a YCS right now, and it looks like once again, we've gotten a list at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It is soon enough that we might expect one, given how bad the game kind of seems to be.
Multiple times on stream, I believe, and being able to turn off your own skill drain, locking your opponent on a skill drain, it's really, really strong.
Infinite permanence is there, but he's got the crossout designator to play past it. And Paolo has the effect veiler to go one further.
We are in the WCQ season, so it's a bit strange that it would be in between all the events, given that now Oceanic, South American, and Central American WCQs have all passed. We have a bit of a break, though, between the World Championship qualifiers. But those two tournaments will also be a different format either way. Infinite Forbidden will be legal, and no matter what, we are going to have two separate WCQ formats. So I think it is in Konami's best interests to make a new list. But, okay, needing a list or not, let me talk about why I think it is so important that we get one. So we've heard all these complaints before, so I'll kind of go through them fast. But the main thing here is Snake Eye is it's just not where you want to be. The reason why it's so troublesome is that there's not an effective countermeasure. Like, say you go first for Snake Eye, okay, there are some like good cards, generic value traps and negates can hold up pretty well. However, going second, there's not a reliable strategy. Hand traps are very fluky. They will work maybe sometimes, and oftentimes need to string together these large 2 and 3 card combinations to really make sure that you can actually slow down your opponent. The end field of cards like Appaloosa, the Princess, and IPSP, even though they lack Baron and Savage, are still strong enough. The other approach to trying to stop Snake Eye would be to break the field, but you run into a very similar problem there as well. With board breakers, one alone is really not going to do much, even if you don't have the negates. Yes, this is maybe easier to do now than it was before when there was Baron Savage, but you really can't reliably break through the board. And even when you pair like 1 or 2 board breakers together, maybe a third one even, you sometimes still can't win because your opponent will have the board off of one Snake Eye Ash or an Ash plus a Witch, and then also have hand traps back it up, meaning it's just going to be really, really hard to actually secure any meaningful progress against Snake Eye. This all stems from how powerful the one-card combos are, and that one-card combo's ability to end on a good field that is safe from breakers, while also being insulated from most hand traps. And the other key aspect here is not just that it's one-card combos, but there are several one-card combos that can also act as extenders, meaning you lose redundancy. Whereas broken as Zodiac cards may have been before, a bunch of normal summons clogging your hand wouldn't have done anything past the first normal summon if it got stopped. With the Snake Eyes cards, because of Witch, Bonfire to Poplar, and Wanted, you have enough ways to extend past hand traps that they also act as starters and extenders. And that's where, although it may add to the consistency and power of the deck, and that's theoretically good for design, it leads to just crazy decks that are unhand trappable and also unbreakable. And this overall leaves Snake Eye just one of the most well-positioned decks across the format. It's obviously a driving force. So with this position we're in, Snake Eye is very clearly the best deck of the meta. It is the main driving force in how every deck is going to be built, and the decks that are going to be played that aren't Snake Eye are going to be built to beat it. But that being said, unlike other formats where you have solid rogue picks, Snake Eyes is very far and away just better. Even when your matchup is theoretically good versus Snake Eye, it's really not that crazy. It's not as good, for example, as Kashtira versus Tier Elements. Nothing really feels nearly as polarizing for Snake Eye. The downside to playing Snake Eye is just not there. And on top of that, we have another problem in that with Infinite Forbidden, we're getting new extension themes to give Snake Eyes more tools to play through more hand traps when they go first, and also make better boards. We are getting the Millennium cards and the Fiendsmith cards, and we don't know if we're getting the Light Fiend Link 2 yet, the Closed World Goddess, because that will enable even more power ceiling and extension ability in the deck. But either way, Fiendsmith is useful as an extension tool. It puts several bodies into play with just one card and without using a normal summon, and could access your main engine via Beatrice. We're also going to have access to Millennium cards, which could turn into 3 bodies on field without the cost of a normal summon. Of course, with that, you could turn into Princess, or you could sack off cards for Snake Eye Ash. Either way, they give you meaningful ways to push through what would otherwise be a bit of a risky play, being Ash normal summon its Impermanent Veiler. Infinite Forbidden only exacerbates the earlier problems, where you feel like your hand traps don't do enough, but breakers do even less. And you kind of have to pick somewhere what you're going to do. And yeah, it's not a great position to be in for a format for health-wise, especially as we're trying to pick the most qualified players to qualify for the World Championship to represent our regions. So how do we fix this then? What's the next step going to be? Now, we've isolated that big problem there is that Snake Eyes isn't beatable in one way. Now, if you could try and tackle the end board, hit cards like Appaloosa and IP. And while I'm fine with that, I do want to be realistic and align myself at least somewhat with Konami's priorities. I do understand at the end of the day they are a business, they need to make money. And given that Rarity Collection 2 was released not too long ago, I do not expect them to be hitting the cards that were reprinted in that set, especially if they were the main driving sellers. So IP and Appaloosa, I think, may have limited time left in this game. I don't expect or really think they'll be hit in this next list. Maybe you can hit Promethean Princess. That one's not bad because that will also hit their ability to extend through hand traps and some of their follow-up and some of the disruption. But ultimately, they can still do the IP Flamebridge thing because some combos don't even use Princess, and the deck would still be fine. So what I do think is actually where I want to be here, and it's something I talked about earlier, it's banning Snake Eyes Oak. And I want to do this and not original Sinful Spoil because I feel like original Sinful Spoil is too integral to making Witch work with other themes. I think if they get rid of original, then Witch kind of falls apart as a card, and I don't think they need to do that when there's other solutions that keep other decks intact more so, and hurt Snake Eyes, and also don't kill Snake Eyes. You don't need to kill every deck just because it's bad. You can weaken it. So what banning Snake Eyes Oak does is it means accessing Snake Eyes Flamebridge is way harder to do. So if you've played versus Snake Eyes and tried hand trapping them, some of the ways you want to do that is hand trapping the effects of Snake Eye Ash and Oak special deck, because they only have those two limited ways to access Flamebridge. After you cut off their ways to access Flamebridge, the deck's power level does start to drop, and it becomes way more manageable to deal with. But banning Oak means you no longer have to get the Oak, you can just target down the Ash. And if you're able to target down the Ash's effect, and hold an Ash Blossom for that, maybe send off Flamebridge, you have way more meaningful ways to disrupt them. It also means you can't do stuff with Temple placing Oak and giving an extra summon there. That type of play was very safe in hand traps. Now you have way less you can do. Even in the non-pure versions of Snake Eye, where we played Fire King, for example, you usually wanted to cycle Oak so you could set up better plays with Sunlight Wolf and Flamebridge before you committed your original. So getting rid of that Oak would kind of mean you can't clean up your bodies as well for fires. It means you can't extend that well through hand traps. It means you can't access Flamebridge as often. It's easier to choke the Snake Eye player with hand traps. And if you don't need to string together 2 to 3, you don't have to play 18 hand traps in every goddamn deck. You can just play like 12 and it'll be manageable. It's important to note that hitting Oak does also somewhat hit the follow-up of the deck. So while this isn't the main point I'm trying to go for, it does offer an alternate win condition when you enter the grind game versus Snake Eye opponents. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Offering alternate win conditions for people to get creative and adaptive, I think is one of the best parts of the game, and I encourage it to exist.
This is clean. This is very clean. We got the other arm, and all 5 pieces have been assembled. The legs, the arms, the head. Exodia obliterates.
Unbelievable.
So letting people kind of adapt to that grind game now they don't have Oak strategy is something that cool I'll take, even if it's not the most important thing to focus on with Oak being banned. Without Oak, though, this deck might still be somewhat viable. You still have access to relatively strong combos, even if they aren't completely insulated through hand traps. You'll still be able to apply pressure with cards like Flamebridge. You'll be able to mix this with other themes, such as Fernoid, something that just got a bunch of support and I want to see thrive a little more, or Fire Kings, or Race, or Infernoble. And I think it overall keeps the theme a lot more alive, while also hitting the deck to an extent where you can reasonably start to prepare for it less and focus it down less in the meta. I think if this type of change happens and Snake Eye loses the top spot, the whole ecosystem in the current format collapses, and other complaints people may have will start to follow suit. Other decks people may have a problem with, like Tempai, Melodious, if for whatever reason that's your problem, will start to reshape in a way that doesn't require this incredible amounts of non-engine. And then around that, those decks do have flaws that are very exploitable via the side deck, or if you want to anticipate it enough. In the main deck, Tempai going second is very, not good for them. You can very easily play cards like Daruma Cannon, Heat Wave, who knows what, or back removal for the field spell, and realistically not have a problem with that deck. And I think other mid-range decks like Melodious will be pushed out by decks being able to play more non-engine. I'm using Melodious as an example, but the main point I'm trying to get here is you allow space in the metagame as well for these higher engine decks to get back in. So yeah, I think with that one fix, we do get a lot of the format solved. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other problems with Yu-Gi-Oh! The other problems that aren't nearly as pressing are more timeless. Cards like Shifter, cards like Anti-Spell, which are still not banned. Skill Drain now being kind of a problem, although you can argue that's not as bad. It's just a Snake Eye problem again. These cards can be addressed still, and I wouldn't mind Konami hitting some of those along the way as well. But the main thing here is Snake Eye needs to be addressed. It's not going to make for a positive format, I think, for the next few months. And we are at the point in the year where we can expect one. It's not like guaranteed, which is the problem, right? We saw in Zodiac format, it did happen around this time. And you can make parallels between Zodiac and Snake Eye. So I am hoping that Konami has the sense to do something, even if a minor list, reshape this format so Snake Eye, even if still viable, is not the same driving force that really pushes the meta into the state it is now, and we can see a better WCK format. Let me know what you guys think. If I'm being overly aggressive or too conservative in terms of my hit to Snake Eye. If you hate the deck that much, you want to see completely dead, so you ban like Ash or some nonsense. Or if there's anything else I missed, because perhaps other decks need to get hit as well, and I'm just overthinking or underthinking in terms of what's required in order to stabilize the format. If you guys want to see more discussion videos as well, leave a like and a comment and subscribe. What other discussions you feel like we're talking about, what other opinions you feel like I can share to further progress the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Anyways, I hope we see some change in the future, but if not, we'll push through this WCK format together, just like always. So I'll see you all then. Peace.